Hey everybody, it's Sean Bewley the Kid. This episode is not about Southwest history. It is about history nonetheless. Now, this is the only time I'm going to do something like this. I have a really old trunk from a long time ago that was given to me. And at first it had a few things in it, and then over time people found out I was really into history, and so they kept giving me things. And some of the things are kind of disturbing enough that I didn't want to keep them in my house. So I brought the trunk into the studio here because I want to go through it. And I don't know every last thing about what's in that trunk, but I can tell you it is absolutely filled with historical things, all of which are legal, but some are disturbing nonetheless. So I haven't gone through this thing in years, and I'm going to start rummaging through it and pull things out and show you. And I'm going to try to do them in some sort of chronological order because I don't want to be jumping time periods. If I see something that is from the same time period, I'll pull those out in a row. So let's get started. I'm going to pull out the first items. Now, the first items are kind of mild, and then I'm going to progressively get worse by the end of the video. And you guys will see why when I pull out the last items on this. And I want you guys to comment on what you guys think about people having these things. And, you know, are you guys like me? You just wouldn't have this in your house, or are these just inanimate objects and there's nothing bad attached to them? I think there might be. I'm kind of a scientific minded person, but you know, I do believe in things we can't see. I've had evidence of that. I've had things happen. This is why I keep this trunk in storage, not in my house. So let's begin. But before we dive in, if you love amazing and sometimes downright weird stories, especially from the old Southwest, then buckle up because I'll take you along for the ride. Now, I've got to warn you, I may veer off course for just a moment now and then, talking about my personal connections to the story. But don't you worry, I'll have us back on track before you even know it. If you enjoy these stories, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. It really helps keep the adventure going. Now, the first thing I'll show you is what I originally had with the trunk, and that is some stuff from World War I. My grandfather's brother Henry was killed in France in 1918, and he was buried there until probably the 1980s when they moved the cemetery or something, or they dug everybody up and they returned Henry's remains back to the United States, where my grandfather received them and had him buried in Minnesota, where he was born and grew up. Here's Henry's hat, and you can see in the picture, this picture was either taken in 1917 or 1918. This is his hat. I do not have the rest of his uniform. I believe another relative has that. But I do have his leggings he wore in the trenches over in France as they were fighting the Germans. And these are quite filthy. And these things basically would go from the pant leg down to the boot to help guard against whatever, tearing, things getting in there. So anyway, these are Henry's, I don't know what they're called, leggings or something like that. So here's another thing that was in the trunk. This is from World War I, and it's a magazine. It's from 1918. It's called Leslie's The War in Pictures. And if you open it up, it's just full of what's going on with the war. And it even has some pages like this where it says Wall of Honor. And it shows the different guys who were killed in battle on this edition. And it even says where, and a lot of them were killed on the Marne in France. Here's another guy killed on the Marne front. And so the reason I mentioned the Marne is because I was in the 3rd Infantry Division, and our slogan was Rock of the Marne. And that came from the 3rd Infantry Division back in World War I, held the Germans at the Marne during a critical point in the war. So it's interesting how these guys were in that battle and many battles on that, and they were killed. Next thing I found inside the trunk is this derby hat. When I received this thing, I didn't know what to think about it because I heard of who wore this and I thought, okay, that's pretty weird. But it's a very well-worn derby hat, has an animal hide belt going around it with a coin pressed in the middle. I don't know a huge amount about this, but this thing is a little bit weird. It's got a little bit of a weird lore about it. This is a cap that I believe is from the early 1900s. It was a United States military cadet cap. And this thing says Henderson Ames inside, and it is very, very old and well worn. I have no idea why this is in there. This was given to me, and as far as I can tell, it's British. And it looks like a helmet that would be worn by the Palace Guard or something like that. The guys that are on horseback. Some of you UK people might know a little bit more about this. And I don't know why this is in my trunk, but it's in the trunk. All right, these are kind of interesting. These are bayonets. I've got 2 of them. Right here. See? Got 2. And these are pretty old. They're awful looking things. I can't imagine attaching this to my rifle. When I was in the Army, our bayonets were about this long. And you can see how much longer this thing is. And when you take it out, it's got kind of a curve to it. And this thing, I believe, is French. I believe both of them are. In fact, it has French writing on it. And this one here, it says something in French. It's like the date written in cursive. And then it says 1868. And then it attaches to a rifle. And if you can imagine back in the day having a musket where you can fire one shot and then the next thing you know, you're in combat. Well, this particular bayonet, you get a pretty good distance from you and the enemy. And you can immediately detach this bayonet and use it as an actual sword to start slashing. But these things are pretty crazy. And I got to put it in the right direction. It goes in like that. And then I'll read the other date. This one here is, it says right here, 1873. So it's another one of those. Man, these are long. But that's how it worked back then. You fire one musket ball and you reload or you pull this bad boy out and you just start slashing. So I don't know what all these things have been through, and I don't know if they've actually taken a life, but they're in the trunk. Here's another odd thing that was in the trunk. is some sort of historic shirt. Don't know anything about it, but it was in the trunk. I don't know why this is in the trunk, but this is a steel helmet. It's got a kind of like a little bomb thing with a deal above it. And it's very well worn and old, but I don't know the history of this thing, and I don't know why it's in the trunk. So the rest of the video, I'm going to show you some stuff from the World War II era. Some of it you're going to go, oh, that's cool. And other things you're going to go, yeah, that's kind of disturbing. But in order to not have a problem with this video, I'm not going to say a certain term. I'm going to just show you this thing. And if you don't know what it means, I want you to read this and say it out loud. There are some things in the trunk that are, say it out loud, and then you'll know what I mean. So every time I want to say the word, I'll just hold this up. Okay? Now, when our soldiers went over and fought in World War II, there was a thing allowed called spoils of war. A lot of our troops were able to send or bring home certain amounts of things that they obtained while fighting these guys. And over time, I knew quite a few of these kind of people, and they knew I was really into history. I was such a history buff, especially Southwest history, Civil War, things like that. But I also liked World War histories. And a lot of these guys that fought over there came home with some of this stuff, and they had to register it with the United States government. So I have registration forms. I have the original things. Let me go find one. Now, I have a few of these things with my items to prove that they're legitimately brought here. This is a certificate from the United States government. It says 18th September 1945, Wilbur Butler, Corporal, and then it has his serial number on there. And then it has basically a list of items that he sent home. One German P38 pistol. It's got the serial number here. A pair of German 6 focus binoculars. Those are in the trunk. And some German compasses. So I have a few of these along with these items. So as an example, in that list, that certificate that he was allowed to bring, these binoculars have a serial number that matches that certificate. And these were taken on the battlefield and sent back here. So these belong to this is a World War II dress uniform belonging to that corporal that I just showed the certificate that he brought things home. So I also have his uniform, and he was in the 1st Army. Here's a United States Army helmet from World War II. Here's another United States Army helmet. We call them steel pots. And there's a liner inside. Here's a hat. United States Army. Very old. It's a Bancroft. Now, a lot of times the guys brought home bayonets. These are German bayonets. And these were known as Mauser bayonets. They had attached to a Mauser rifle. They're very sharp. And a lot of these things came back. This one has a wood handle. This one also has a wood handle. And this one has a wood handle. Now, these are the probably less desirable bayonets, but yet they're still pretty interesting. And As you can see, these weren't exactly swords, but they attach them to the front of their rifle. And if they need to, they can take it off and use it as a knife or a weapon. Now, one lady I knew, she just passed away, but her father went over there, and the only thing that she gave me from him, because she thought I would really like this is a German K98 bayonet. These are a lot more sought after. They attach to their rifle a little bit differently than those Mauser bayonets. But this is a very sought after bayonet that belonged to a All right, we're going to get a little more disturbing here pretty soon. There was a old guy that was in the Navy back in World War II, and I ended up with his stuff, some of it, and some of it kind of gives me the chills a little bit, but I'll show you the cool stuff at first. This is him and his friend, and then he has a few pictures of the battleships and dropping things, and some more pictures of him. So you ready to see something kind of disturbing? And I don't know what this thing is, by the way. It looks like it's just some kind of thing with a clear window from back then. But here's something interesting. So he was in the Navy, and they used to, I guess, pull up in California. And here's an old matchbook. And what it says is, it says the players. And it says, whatever it says there, it says Sunset Boulevard. So this sailor during World War II, they docked in California. And, you know, he's probably drinking away at that club and maybe other things. Okay, time for some really disturbing things. So this sailor, their battleship was able to capture a U-boat, a German U-boat. And he had this in his possession. Here's something disturbing. I'm going to cover this up because it's a symbol. But this is a passport. He took this off of one of the sailors on this U-boat. This has everywhere this guy has been. And riveted in the page, got to make sure there's no symbols in here. But there he is. They captured this guy or killed this guy. I don't know which one it is, but he ended up with his passport and it's here. And it says where he was born, where his parents are born. It's stamped with where he has been. And for example, he was in Dresden. There's a lot of Dresden stamps here, if you guys know about that. But this is May of 1941 was stamped right there. And this is, I can't even show you some of these stamps because I have to cover this up because it's a symbol. But Dresden, 1941. And so anyway, there's that. So you can actually see a face. Something else that's in the trunk is I got some stuff from this guy. He's an old guy named Martin. And he was in World War II. He was in some crazy battles over there. And he survived. And he went back to Illinois and became a state trooper. This is his ID, state trooper ID from 1974. And I have some written documentation from him. This I don't think was necessarily in the war, but this is from him. He used to own this. I do not have this in the trunk. I kept this in the gun safe. But this is a 1911 pistol, and he swapped out the grips with pearl grips. So it used to have black grips, and now it has pearl grips, and it works really good. And he has this interesting holster. So Martin was in the Battle of the Bulge, and he ended up killing a German. And he took this off of the German's body. This is a pocket watch. And you can see right there. Doesn't have a lot of markings on it, but this pocket watch was something after he killed the man. He brought this home. So this thing, I just kind of keep it separate. This is a cap. I believe it was from a Society of War Veterans in Germany that formed, I believe, after World War I. Some of you guys can correct me on that. But it has a symbol right there, and they used to march around, and this was and they were disbanded in 1945 after defeating the... So this is an old cap. All right, this is really awful. This is a parade helmet that was brought back when these guys marched around in ceremony. They didn't wear their war helmets. They wore these shiny black ones. And I cannot show you what is on this side, but if you take a guess, it is a symbol of a... So anyway, here's how that looks, the inside of it. And then we'll just slightly cover that up, but it's all original. And I find this thing to be a little bit disturbing. All right, guys, the last thing that I'm going to show you out of the trunk is probably the most disturbing thing I can think of in the trunk. But one of these guys, he brought back a photo album taken from a high-ranking, and this is really kind of disturbing here. Now, I have to be really careful. This is the leader of the... And he's gathered with all these children are adoring him. And it says something on the back and how wonderful he is in German. This is the leader of getting out of the... Looks like an airplane. And anyway, he's right there. And then I'll cover this one up the best I can. But that's not the most disturbing thing, guys. All right, here's the most disturbing thing I have. I've got a photo album. And it is absolutely filled with the daily life of these guys. Now, our American GI, he came back with this photo album, and how he got it out of there, I don't know. So I'm not going to show this up close, but this photo album is absolutely loaded with photos of officers, them guys relaxing, the women having a good time. There's an accordion whole bunch of high-ranking officers, and different things here. I mean, this stuff is not even officially released photographs, and this is just snapshots of whatever. I mean, they're lighting a Christmas tree right there. And then all kinds of saluting going on. There's the SS right there. Inside pictures of that. There's a German Shepherd. And there are more German Shepherd pictures. And then, I don't know what this place is there, but looks like some kind of retreat for officers. A lot of officer pictures, and they're just hanging out and smoking and everything. And you can see. And then, I mean, there's a lot of faces in there. And then here's a bus, a bunch of women in the military. There's people on the bus. There's a bunch of women sitting on a rail, smiling and laughing. And here's a huge column of them marching. And man, I haven't looked at this except one time years ago, and like, man, this is who my family and people you guys probably are related to had to go over and deal with these guys. But holy smokes, look at this. All these pictures of meetings. There's all these crazy pictures I've never seen before. Them marching in the snow. Them eating. Yeah. I don't know what this guy is, if he's like an undercover agent or whatever. But he's standing there. He's in a trench coat. And he has a rifle. And I don't know. And then here's a bunch of officer. I mean, this photo album had to come from someone high ranking in this party, because it's all intimate photographs of what was going on back then. It gives you an insight into this thing. I mean, you can take a magnifying glass to some of these pictures and see what somebody's doing in the background and stuff, but man, there's a whole bunch happening in here. There's a lot of stuff here. And so anyway, I consider this probably the most disturbing thing I have. Probably that, well, maybe that helmet too. So what do you guys think of me having some of these artifacts? I'd say most of them are probably benign. They're keepsakes, things like that. But there's a couple things in there. I just didn't feel comfortable in having this trunk in my house. So that's why I have it not in my house, in a storage. But I kind of hate to see history get erased. I feel like there's a lot of that going on right now, and we're not learning any lessons from the past. And if you guys haven't seen my video about history repeating, please watch the video. It's a good tribute to the World War II generation. I'll put the link in the description. But I think it's a shame because, you know, I'm not out to glorify any of the stuff I have in the trunk, but it's a reminder of the sacrifice that not only the American troops made, but Canadian troops, Australian troops, British troops. Man, the British were fighting these guys a lot longer than we were, and they were getting bombed. And, you know, and I think that entire generation that went through that is dying off. And when they die off, their voices grow silent. And now you can't hardly say or you can't show anything because it's all prohibited, it's censored, and there's good reason why you wouldn't want to perpetuate a new form of this, but erasing the past, I think we're doomed to repeat it. The other thing that kind of bothers me now is you hear people who have no clue what the greatest generation went through. All the people from all the countries that had to fight and win, and how many of them died for it. And now you turn on the TV and you hear people slinging this term around. They're calling people this, and they have no clue how bad these guys actually were. They have no clue. And you know what? I think some of them don't care. They just want to pick the harshest label to put on someone, and let's call them that. But you know what? If that generation was around, that person, I think there'd be like a open-handed cuff to the back of the head. Like, you fool. You have no idea. You have no idea what that was. That was really bad, really terrible, and nothing going on today even closely resembles what happened back then. So, anyway, I wish people would quit throwing this around so easily. It demeans the past. But tell me what you think, guys. I'm gonna load up the trunk, put everything back in. I'm gonna lock up the gun, and I'm gonna put it back in storage and get it the heck out of my house. So, catch you later.
Bewley, the kid.